I'm just gonna read it. Been talking to a lot of others about the importance of technical difficult games. E.g. one frame links. Wait, difficult games. I'm guessing like tools in games, like games that have one frame links, something like that. Versus accessibility, shortcuts, simplified controls. Curious what others think about their effects on the player retention and lifespan of the game and aiding in branching out in games.
Okay,
This is from
so
Bus
let's start
Driver
off with
Dog.
the importance of technicality
Okay.
versus accessibility. So I think technicality is important because having tiers of skill levels, expertise, it makes it things exciting for viewership,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's really important. But of course, for accessibility, it's good to get people immersed in the experience of the game as quickly and as consistently as possible, right? I think that's mad important. But I do think that there should be some sort of balance. I don't like the extremes of either case for the growth of a game. So I'm not a fan, especially of a game being super simple and being easy to execute because there's just a lot of ramifications in terms of risk reward. The strategies just don't. I don't know. It's like seeing somebody go for something that's difficult, and there's a repercussion for doing so. That's what adds tension. Right. So I care. I'm thinking about it from like a viewership standpoint as a player. From a casual player is not gonna be able to tell, right? If something looks cool, that's all they really care about. Um, but I think I think you can have stuff that's hard, right? Looks cool. A player sees that. A casual, they say, "Wow, I want to play this." They play the game, but then there's an accessibility mode that helps them, you know, gradually get over that very steep curve that is, the learning curve in fighting games, or that can be. Because no matter what, you're gonna reach a hurdle in fighting games because it is solely you. It is not like a team-based shooter or these other genres like League where you have other teammates that can compensate for your weaknesses. You have to be direct about what you need to improve on if you're going to improve, right? Like you can keep playing and then just get lucky and get to a certain level or whatever, but you will plateau. And when you plateau, it is going to be so difficult and challenging to get past that if you don't have a structured learner's mindset, you know? And it's very easy to not develop one if you're frustrated that you can't even execute something to begin with, right? But I think if you show them that, you've gotten to this point, and then you show what also exists beyond that, and then showing like, hey, these are the rewards of having high execution inputs, like with Luke, right? Having those time stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything crazy, but just having something to differentiate, something that can set you apart, right? Different forms of expression, I think, is very important, and that's what helps me be drawn to players. It's like a Sako. I love Sako because stuff that this dude was going for in high pressure situations and consistently doing it is like beautiful. It's breathtaking. But that's because I understand. If you don't understand it, you're not going to care, right? So,
But there is something to be said about understanding when you've been immersed into it. Because then
mm,
you know, well, I couldn't even do the basic version of this. This guy's doing the perfect version 16 times in a row. You can
mm,
comprehend that if the game allows you to get decent at it in the first place. Not even decent, just like understand how hard it is. I think the
yeah,
biggest thing about fighting games is understanding the hype. Not just
mm,
being hype, actually understanding why it's hype. You don't have to be great. You just have to try to do a combo one time and be like, holy fuck, that was a 3 frame link? That was incredibly hard. Now someone tells you, oh, that was like 16 1 frame links. You may never do that in your life, but you understand why that's fucking insane, right? And
mm,
I think that a lot of games, a lot of old school fighting games really emphasized high execution. But personally, there's some in the bubble things that I liked about certain games. Like for example, Tekken, Godfist, right? I like Godfist because
mm,
you could do a basic one that's decent. You could do another version that's almost perfect, and the perfect one like hits mid or something. It's like something insane
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, and it's plus.
plus, right? So it's like just do it again. Like I like the idea of making the best version of something borderline impossible, but also busted. I don't
Mm,
mind that. Whenever it's like, whenever the execution's actually insane, when you know
mm,
this guy is basically playing an instrument, like just practicing
word.
every single day to do it, then okay, get something out of it, and then that gives people something to work for. But then you have to have some kind of gradual version. Smash does a good thing with this as well, with the Shotos, or even with Terry, or I'll just say Shotos for example. Hadouken and Smash is forward and special button, right?
Mm,
Or you can do the proper Hadouken where you get Ryu's Shakunetsu, the red fireball, which does a lot more damage and it combos for more things, right? So it gives you a lot more to work with off of some random pokes. So when you're playing Ryu, if you're not that great at the game, you could just do forward and the special. It feels good. You feel like you're playing the game. It doesn't feel terrible. But in reality, that's not going to do much to your opponent on a higher level. But it
right.
gets you into the game. It gets you doing the same moves as the best players in the world. But you can tell something isn't quite there. You can try to learn it, but either you're learning or you don't. But you keep playing because you're able to do the things that you want to do. And I like that a lot about games that are pushing that agenda. I do agree with you that it does need to keep the progression. The whole point of making the game accessible should be to slowly teach you how to get to the next level. It needs to basically dangle the next level in front of you, like, hey, don't you want this? And make it
Yeah.
accessible each time. Each level you grow needs to be accessible. And I think not many games have done that so far. Smash, probably decent, but the controller is not exactly great for that. I think Grand Blue was okay with using the meter, but it didn't really force you to learn it. I think Street Fighter Six is the first game I've seen that is like, hey, you have it if you want it, but it's gonna cost you heavily. Don't you want to do it without it costing you all this energy?
Hmm.
And I think that really does make you want to pick it up and do more stuff. But you're not gonna lose by default just because you don't understand how to do a freaking Hadouken. I like that a lot. Is that in agreement with your statement?
Yeah, I'd say so. And then the other part of it was him saying, just curious about what others think about the effects on player retention and lifespan of the game. So for the lifespan of the game, but I think the lifespan of a game is going to honestly revolve around the community's efforts, and the community is primarily going to be the passionate players, and the passionate players tend to be the players that go a little bit harder than the casuals, right? So I think that if you can maintain their enthusiasm and that journey of constantly, seeking improvement, then a game's gonna stay alive, right? If a game feels like it's fleshed out and people figured it out in a matter of days when it's released, and there's not much wiggle room for expression, and it's stale, people are just not gonna like the game.
I think in the context of this as well, there's also something to be said about the the journey you took to get to where you got and what commitment the game has earned by default. When you put enough effort into something, you don't want to just give it up. It's like, damn, I worked so hard to learn that. You don't want to just
Facts.
drop it. So I think in this context, if learning how to do the Hadouken took you a while, and then like that feeling of when you actually do it, right? When you don't have to rely on that crutch anymore of just forward special, that is what keeps people playing the game. It's like, okay, now I've actually committed time and effort and sweat and emotions into this. This
Hmm.
is something you actually care about now, and I think that keeps people a lot longer. That's why people can hate a game and keep playing it because
The
they loved
investment.
it at one point. Yeah, they
Hmm.
invested into it at one point, and
Yeah.
that emotional investment really matters long term. Obviously, you don't want it to be more of a stressful thing like that, but I do think that journey is what keeps people invested in the game, not just the game itself keeping you interested by releasing DLC every 2 seconds. Like if like at some point, assuming the game is not completely trash, you're gonna turn it on because like yeah, nah, I want to throw some fireballs and DP someone. Like
Yeah.
you've learned that tool and it makes you feel good to do it.